The air in the palace felt heavy, thick with the dust of history and the tension of a future yet unwritten. President Ibrahim Traoré stood by the window, the city lights a scattered gold beneath him. He wasn't just seeing buildings and streets, he was seeing the souls of his people. And he knew, deep in his bones, that the hardest fight was just beginning. Before we delve into this incredible journey of courage and sovereignty, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us share these vital stories with the world. The proposal sat on his desk, a thick binder filled with charts, numbers, and promises written in smooth, confident language. It was a deal for the country's most valuable resource, a mineral buried deep in the earth, sought after by powers across the globe. For decades, these kinds of deals had siphoned wealth out of Burkina Faso, leaving the people with dust while foreign companies built empires. This time, Traoré was determined it would be different. This deal had to benefit the nation, educate its children, heal its sick, build its future. But the path to a fair deal was steeper and more dangerous than any mountain. The companies, backed by powerful governments from lands far away, were not used to hearing no. They were not used to a young African leader looking them in the eye and demanding respect, demanding fairness, demanding that the riches of the land stay with the people of the land. Whispers had reached Traoré's ears, fragments of conversations, veiled threats, offers of personal wealth that would make him a king if only he would look the other way, if only he would sign the papers they wanted signed, if only he would betray his oath to his people. He had refused, calmly but firmly, and that refusal had made him an enemy. The first signs were subtle, like ripples on a still pond. Key advisors who had seemed loyal suddenly started finding problems with the proposed terms that favored Burkina Faso. Reports were delayed, crucial data seemed to disappear, and the negotiation process, already complex, became tangled in layers of bureaucracy and sudden, unexplained hurdles. On the streets, a quiet campaign of misinformation began, spreading rumors about Traoré, questioning his decisions, trying to sow doubt and unrest among the population who had placed their hope in him. It was a tactic as old as colonialism itself: divide the people, weaken the leader, and then reclaim control. Traoré watched these events unfold with a sharp, discerning gaze. He had learned on the battlefield that chaos is often a strategy, that confusion can be a weapon. He didn't react impulsively. He didn't publicly accuse anyone. Instead, he did what he did best. He observed, he listened, and he planned in silence. He called upon his most trusted allies, a small circle of men and women bound not by rank or history, but by an unshakable loyalty to the vision of a free and prosperous Burkina Faso. Among them was Captain Nabazongo, the quiet officer with eyes that missed nothing, and a new face, a woman named Aminata. A brilliant economist who understood the complex web of international finance and the subtle ways wealth could be stolen on paper. To Aminata, Traoré gave the binder, the seemingly endless pages of the proposed deal. "Find the hidden language," he told her. "Find the clauses that steal with a smile." To Zongo, he gave a different mission, one that required him to move in the shadows once more. "Listen to the whispers," Traoré instructed. "Find the source of the poison spreading in our city. Follow the money. It always leads to the truth." Aminata disappeared into her work, surrounded by documents, her mind mapping the intricate pathways of global finance. She found clauses buried deep within the legal text, phrases that seemed harmless, but under scrutiny, allowed for inflated costs, hidden fees, and loopholes that would shift billions in profits away from Burkina Faso over the years. It wasn't outright theft on the surface. It was sophisticated extraction, designed to be legal, designed to keep the country poor even as its resources were exploited. The signature at the end of this binder, intended for Traoré, was a signature on a new form of servitude. Meanwhile, Zongo moved through the city's underbelly, not in the high-stakes rooms of power, but in the places where secrets are traded. He frequented quiet cafes where low-level officials complained about sudden windfalls, listened in on conversations at the port about unexplained shipments, and tracked the movements of individuals who had no official connection to the mining deal, but suddenly had access to unusual amounts of cash. He discovered a network of middlemen, fixers, and seemingly respectable businessmen who were facilitating the flow of information and, more importantly, money between foreign representatives and key figures within the country. The trail led Zongo to a series of clandestine meetings. He documented encounters between foreign diplomats and local politicians known for their extravagant lifestyles. He found evidence of payments made to shell companies abroad, payments disguised as consulting fees or investment capital. The pattern was clear: a coordinated effort, funded from outside, to corrupt individuals at different levels of the government and civil society, creating a web of influence and sabotage designed to either force Traoré to sign the unfavorable deal or, failing that, to destabilize the country and remove him from power entirely. The whispers on the street, the delays in the negotiations, the missing documents, it was all part of a deliberate plan. Zongo brought his findings back to Traoré, not in a formal report, but in hushed tones late at night, the city silent outside the palace windows. Photos of meetings, coded messages intercepted, bank records showing suspicious transfers. The web was wider and deeper than they had initially imagined. Some of the names were expected, men known for their greeds, but others were shocking. Individuals who had publicly praised Traoré, who sat in positions of trust, smiling during the day while plotting in the dark. The betrayal was a physical blow, a reminder that the enemy often wears a friendly face. Traoré listened, his expression grim. The initial proposal was not just bad, it was a trap. The attempt to corrupt his officials was not just illegal, it was an attack on the soul of the nation. He looked at the evidence spread across the table, the financial schemes, the photos of hidden meetings, the list of names, and a cold determination settled in his eyes. They wanted to play games with his country's future. He would show them what happens when you underestimate a man who has nothing to lose but his freedom and everything to gain for his people. He couldn't expose the entire network at once. They were too deeply embedded, too protected by their foreign handlers. A premature move could scatter them, make them disappear, or worse, trigger the public unrest they were trying to incite. He needed to dismantle the operation piece by piece, strategically, starting with the source of their power, the mineral deal itself, and the foreign interests pushing it. Traoré decided on a bold move. He announced a national address, not from a prepared script about the negotiation, but from the heart, speaking directly to the people. He gathered his trusted team. Aminata prepared simplified charts showing how the proposed deal would steal the country's wealth over 50 years, contrasting it with a fair model that would fund schools, hospitals, and infrastructure. Zongo provided anonymized information about the flow of foreign money designed to influence national decisions. On the day of the address, the nation paused. Families gathered around radios, shopkeepers turned up the volume, soldiers in the barracks listened intently. Traoré stood before the cameras, not in military uniform this time, but in simple civilian clothes, a symbol of his connection to the common man. His voice was calm, clear, and resonated with the weight of truth. He didn't name names of traitors yet. Instead, He spoke about the resource, a gift from the land, a potential blessing. He explained, using Aminata's clear data, how previous generations had been cheated, how complex contracts hid simple theft. He showed, using Zongo's findings, how foreign entities were still trying to dictate terms, offering crumbs while demanding the whole loaf, using money to divide and corrupt Burkinabe's citizens against each other. "They tell us we are poor," Traoré said, his voice gaining strength. "They tell us we need their help, their loans, their expertise. But our land is rich, our people are strong. The only poverty here is the poverty of spirit in those who would sell their birthright for a foreign coin." He held up the binder. He declared, "Is not a path to prosperity, it is a gilded cage." He then announced that the original proposal was rejected definitively and unconditionally. Burkina Faso would not sign away its future. A collective gasp, then a roar of approval swept across the nation. In villages and cities, people celebrated. This was the stand they had hoped for, the defiance that echoed the courage of their ancestors. But Traoré's speech was not just a rejection, it was a declaration of intent. He announced that a new national commission would be formed, composed of honest experts and citizens, to review all future resource deals, ensuring transparency and fairness. He also hinted darkly at the hidden hands working against the country, promising that those who betrayed the nation's trust would face justice, regardless of their position or who backed them. The reaction from the foreign powers and their local collaborators was swift and predictable. Publicly, they expressed disappointment and questioned Burkina Faso's stability. Behind the scenes, the pressure intensified. Threats were made against Traoré's life, economic sanctions were hinted at, and the misinformation campaign grew more aggressive, painting him as reckless and isolated. The internal network, exposed but not yet dismantled, scurried like disturbed insects, some trying to flee, others doubling down on their efforts to undermine him. But Traoré was ready. His speech had not only rallied the people, it had flushed out the enemy. Those who reacted with the most venom, the most desperate attacks, revealed themselves. Zongo and Aminata, working with the loyal commission Traoré had quickly assembled, used this reaction to trace the remaining threads of the conspiracy. They identified the key figures who had facilitated the flow of funds and misinformation. With the clear mandate from the people, Traoré authorized swift action. Arrests were made, not in secret, but with transparency. Evidence of foreign payments, coded communications, and plans to incite chaos were presented to the public, shocking the nation, but also solidifying support for Traoré. The scale of the betrayal and the foreign involvement was undeniable. The exposed officials faced the just anger of the people. Some confessed, revealing the names of their foreign handlers and the extent of the pressure and bribery they had faced. Others remained defiant, but were confronted with irrefutable evidence. The foreign powers, seeing their network crumble and their plans exposed to the light of day, issued denials, called the evidence fabrications, and even tried to leverage international institutions against Burkina Faso. But the narrative had shifted. The world was watching, and for once, the story was being told from Ouagadougou, not from distant capitals. Traoré did not stop there. He understood that exposing one plot was not enough. The system that allowed such corruption and foreign interference had to be reformed. He initiated sweeping changes in the military, the civil service, and the economic ministries, promoting individuals based on merit and loyalty to the nation, not connections or wealth. He established strict rules for transparency in all dealings involving national resources. He created educational programs to inform citizens about their country's wealth and the importance of protecting it. In doing so, he became more than a leader. He became a symbol of African dignity, of defiance against neo-colonialism, of the possibility for a nation to stand tall and claim its own destiny. From across the continent, from the diaspora scattered around the globe, messages of support poured in, prayers for his safety, recognition of his courage. He was called a son of Africa, a beacon of hope, a man upon whose shoulders rested the aspirations of millions who longed to see Africa free and prosperous. The fight was far from over. The forces that sought to control Burkina Faso's wealth were powerful and patient. They would undoubtedly try again in different ways, using different tactics. But now, the people were awake. They had seen the truth. They knew who their leader was, and they knew what he stood for. They knew that the path to true sovereignty was fraught with peril, requiring constant vigilance and unwavering courage. President Ibrahim Traoré continued his work, sometimes visible, giving speeches that ignited the spirit of his people, sometimes in the quiet solitude of his office, planning the next steps, anticipating the next challenge. He knew that his life was constantly under threat, that powerful enemies wished to see him fall, but he also knew that he did not walk alone. He walked with the hopes of a nation, the prayers of a continent, and the quiet strength that comes from serving a truth larger than himself. He had shown the world that Burkina Faso was not for sale, and by standing firm, he had reminded Africa and the world that the sun was rising on a new era of sovereignty, one act of courage, one stand for justice, one loyal heart at a time. This is just one chapter in the ongoing story of Captain Ibrahim Traoré and the struggle for a truly free Africa. If you were moved by this narrative, if you stand with the vision of sovereign African nations, please show your support. Give this video a like. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Where are you watching from, and what does Traoré represent to you? And most importantly, subscribe to the channel. Join our community dedicated to exploring the stories that redefine Africa's future. Thank you for watching.